The morning over New Geneva was calm and bright. The sky was painted gold and white as the first light of dawn touched the towers of glass and steel. Birds glided between floating gardens, and below them, people began another peaceful day. Humanity had grown far beyond its violent past. For more than 200 years there had been no wars. The Terran Union had united the scattered worlds of humankind under one symbol: peace through progress. Across 1,000 colonies, humans worked as explorers, scientists, and engineers. They had discovered faster ways to travel between stars, built cities on moons, and turned barren planets into homes. Humanity had changed from conquerors into creators. They had not forgotten their past, but they no longer wanted to live in it. But peace has a strange weakness. It makes people believe the universe will always stay kind. At exactly 0743, Standard Galactic Time, every screen, every holographic panel, and every comlink across the Union blinked. The lights flickered once, then went black. Conversations stopped. Machines froze. Pilots looked at dead displays, and civilians stared at darkened walls. For a moment, the entire Terran communication network went silent. Then the screens came back to life. A single broadcast appeared, forcing itself onto every channel. The video was shaky but clear enough to see what was happening. The scene showed a burning human colony. The sky was red, full of smoke and falling ships. The sound of screaming filled the air. The broadcast switched between scenes: soldiers in silver armor dragging people from homes, alien war machines crushing everything in their path, and massive ships hovering above the colony. The location was marked on the corner of the transmission: Sarion Prime, a peaceful research world on the far edge of human space. The attackers were not pirates or rebels. They were aliens, tall reptilian beings covered in scales of black and crimson. They called themselves the Zelthar Dominion, one of the old empires of the galaxy that had stayed silent for centuries. Now they had returned, and they came not for trade or diplomacy but for dominance. The broadcast showed no mercy. Civilians were executed. Entire buildings were destroyed by energy blasts. The aliens laughed as they fired into crowds. The video ended with a symbol: a black clawed hand crushing the flag of the Terran Union, and a voice that spoke in translated words: "Behold, weaklings of soul, the Zelthar have returned. You live only by our choice. Your peace is over." Then the transmission cut out. Across the galaxy, silence followed. Billions of humans stared at their screens, unable to speak. The calm world they had built seemed to shatter in one instant. In the center of New Geneva, the Terran Council gathered within the great white hall known as the Ark of Unity. The 12 leaders of humanity stood around a glowing table that projected the last moments of the broadcast. None of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Counselor Darren Cho, head of Interstellar Security, whispered, 10 million lives, gone in one day. Admiral Raina Holt, one of the few remaining veterans of the old wars, stood at the edge of the room. Her gray hair was tied back, her eyes hard as steel. She had fought in the frontier conflicts long before peace began. She knew what this message truly meant. This wasn't just an attack, she said quietly. It was a message to the entire galaxy. They want us to fear them. Counselor Amina Torres shook her head. Fear? After 2 centuries of peace, humanity has no army to fight them. We can't, Raina cut her off. You think peace erased what we are? The room went silent again. Raina looked around at the faces of the leaders, scientists, diplomats, administrators, all brilliant, all unprepared for war. They think humans have gone soft, she said. They think we've forgotten what it means to fight. They're wrong. Peace didn't destroy our fire, it only hid it. That night, the same broadcast replayed across every major world. People gathered in streets and homes and massive halls, all watching the same terrible images. Children cried. Parents clenched their fists. Old veterans stared at the burning colonies and remembered. On Mars, deep within the dusty plains of Valles Marineris, ancient hangars opened for the first time in a century. Massive steel doors lifted, revealing old warships buried beneath the red sand. Ships once part of the legendary fleet of Sol, mothballed when the galaxy entered peace. Engineers stood in awe as the lights flickered on inside them, one by one. On Earth's moon in the city of Tranquility Base, soldiers stood before a wall engraved with the names of the fallen from the old wars. A single word began to echo among them: carry on. The next morning, recruitment centers saw lines stretching for miles. Men and women, young and old, scientists, miners, even farmers, all came to volunteer. They came not for revenge, but for justice. They wanted to defend the memory of those who died. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Raina Holt walked through the bridge of the battleship TNS Valiant. The ship was old but strong, built during the last Great War, armed with rail cannons and plasma torpedoes that once terrified the stars. She ran her hand across the control panels and said, "Wake up, old girl. Humanity needs you again." Her crew, a mix of new recruits and veterans, prepared for activation. The ship's engines rumbled as ancient power cores came alive. The hum of energy filled the air. Across the Union, hundreds of other ships began to wake as well. In the coming days, humanity changed. Factories shifted from building machines for exploration to weapons for defense. Research stations began creating new shield technologies. AI factories on Jupiter produced drones and repair units non-stop. The Terran Union transformed from peaceful builders into a storm preparing to rise. The news channels called it the Awakening. Even far beyond human borders, alien civilizations watched in shock. The Zelthar had thought their message would break human spirit. Instead, it had united an entire species under one emotion, strengthened everywhere. People repeated the same three words: remember Sarion Prime. The words became a symbol, carved into ships, painted on helmets, whispered in the dark. It was not just a slogan, it was a promise. Human scientists discovered something else hidden in the broadcast, a set of coordinates. They led to the Zelthar command world near the Veil Nebula. Many believed it was a trap, but Raina didn't care. At a secret meeting aboard the TNS Valiant, she addressed her captains through holographic projection. "They wanted to show us our weakness," she said. "They wanted to make us kneel. But they've done the one thing they should never have done, reminded humanity what we're capable of when we're angry." Her voice was calm, but everyone on that channel felt it, the weight of old fury returning. She continued, "We will rebuild the fleet. We will train. We will rise again, not to destroy everything, but to make sure the galaxy remembers that humanity is not prey. We are survivors, builders, fighters, and when we strike, the stars themselves will burn," the crews shouted in agreement, their voices echoing through comlinks. Outside, in the silent dark of space, the shipyards came alive. New hulls formed, silver and black, stronger than before. Drones swarmed like fireflies, welding metal, installing reactors, loading weapons. The new fleet would not be built in anger alone. It would be built with precision, purpose, and unity. Raina watched from her window as the stars shimmered beyond. Somewhere out there, the Zelthar celebrated their victory, laughing at the thought of human fear. They had no idea what they had truly unleashed. Humanity's calm had ended. The sleeping giant was awake again. In the small colony of Astra 9, a teacher stood before her young students. The broadcast had reached their world too. The children were scared, asking if the monsters would come for them next. She smiled sadly and said, "Do not be afraid. Humans have always risen when darkness comes. We always stand again." And above that little school, in the night sky, the first newly forged human warship roared to life, its engines blazing blue against the stars. The universe would soon remember. The age of human peace was over, and the age of human fury had begun. 6 months had passed since the broadcast of Sarion Prime. In those months, humanity had changed completely. The calm and peaceful species that once believed war was behind them had become something new, something old, reborn. The quiet shipyards now burned with blue fire, building warships faster than ever before. Factories worked without rest. New recruits trained under veterans who had fought in the ancient frontier wars. The Terran Union was no longer sleeping. It was preparing. The alien empires across the galaxy watched in silence. They had seen the broadcast, seen Sarion burn, and many had expected humanity to hide in fear. Instead, they watched the humans rebuild an army greater than any before. They began to whisper a new name, the Rage Fleet. At the heart of it stood Admiral Raina Holt, commander of the new Terran Expeditionary Force. Her face appeared across every human world, giving short, calm messages that inspired billions. "We fight not for revenge, but for memory. We fight to make sure no one ever dares to destroy what we build again." Behind her, the fleet grew. The TNS Valiant, her flagship, was now joined by hundreds of ships, battleships, Cruisers, carriers, and stealth destroyers. Every vessel carried the same words carved into its hull. Remember Sarion. The mission at last. The coordinates hidden in the alien broadcast were confirmed. They led to a planet deep within the Veil Nebula, the Zelthar Prime Command World, the very heart of their power. The Council feared the mission would be suicide. The nebula was filled with radiation storms and energy currents that made navigation almost impossible. No ship had ever gone in and returned, but Reyna simply said, "Good, that means they won't expect us to." Her plan was simple: hit the Zelthar where it hurt most. Destroy their central communication array and cripple their control network. If successful, the entire Dominion would fall into chaos. The operation was named Echo Fire. Departure. The fleet assembled near Saturn, hundreds of warships lined up like an ocean of steel and light. The massive engines glowed blue, illuminating the rings of the planet below. The sight was breathtaking, humanity united under one purpose. On the bridge of the Valiant, Reyna stood beside her second-in-command, Commander Elias Trent, a young officer with sharp eyes and a fierce will. "Fleet status?" Reyna asked. "All ships online, Admiral." "The Rage Fleet is ready for launch," Elias replied. Reyna looked out at the view, the endless stars, cold and silent. Then she spoke into the comm. Her voice reached every ship in the fleet. "They thought we had forgotten how to fight. They thought peace made us weak. But they forgot peace never killed our fire. It only made it burn deeper. Today we remind the stars that humanity does not kneel. Today we remember Sarion." Every captain repeated the words. Every soldier, engineer, and pilot whispered them like a prayer. Then with a single command, the fleet jumped into hyperspace. The Nebula of Shadows, the jump through the veil. Nebula was rough. The stars vanished, replaced by swirling red and violet clouds. Lightning storms of energy flashed across space, shaking the ships. "Shields at full," Elias shouted as the Valiant trembled. Reyna held the railing, her eyes on the scanners. "Stay steady. We're close." One by one, the ships broke through the radiation field and entered the calm center of the nebula. There, in the middle of the glowing mist, they saw it. The Zelthar command planet, a dark sphere covered with crimson lights and ringed by thousands of warships. The enemy fleet was massive. More than 10,000 ships surrounded the planet like a swarm of black wasps. Elias's face turned pale. "They're waiting for us." Reyna smiled faintly. "Good. Saves us the trouble of finding them." The battle begins. The first Zelthar ships opened fire. Beams of red plasma streaked across the void, striking the front line of human ships. Shields flared, explosions rippled through space. "Return fire," Reyna ordered. The Rage Fleet roared to life. Massive cannons fired from every direction. Torpedoes streaked through the darkness, hitting alien vessels with blinding light. The human ships moved like dancers, each one perfectly coordinated. Years of training, simulation, and instinct guided them. Where alien ships charged in chaos, human fleets fought with unity. In the center of the fight, the TNS Valiant took the lead. Its rail cannons tore through the largest enemy vessels, and its drone wings swarmed the smaller ones like angry sparks. "Target their command frigates," Reyna commanded. "Cut off their coordination." Dozens of smaller human ships broke formation and dove straight into the enemy lines. They weaved between plasma bolts, taking heavy damage but hitting their targets with precision. Explosions blossomed like suns across the nebula. Elias grinned. "Their formation's breaking, Admiral." Reyna nodded. "Push forward. Remember Sarion." The fleet advanced, on the ground while the fleet fought above. A smaller human strike team descended toward the surface of Zelthar Prime. Their goal? Destroy the central communication core buried inside a fortress city. Captain Lena Aras, leader of the Special Forces Team Iron Dawn, piloted their dropship through heavy fire. "Ground team approaching target zone," she said into the comm. The dropship shook as plasma blasts tore past them. One hit nearby, sending the ship spinning. Lena gritted her teeth, forcing the controls steady. "We're not dying yet." They crash-landed near the fortress walls, smoke and dust rising around them. The soldiers jumped out, their armor glowing faint blue under the nebula's light. Ahead of them stood the massive gates of the Zelthar fortress, carved with alien symbols guarded by armored beasts. "Move!" Lena shouted. Gunfire filled the air. Human rifles burned bright against the dark metal. The aliens roared, returning fire. But the humans moved like shadows, fast and precise. They fought their way through corridors of metal and flame, losing men but never slowing down. At last they reached the control chamber, a massive room filled with glowing cables and strange machinery. At its center pulsed the communication core, a sphere of red energy. Lena placed the explosive charge at its base. "This is for Carrion," she whispered. The timer blinked. She turned to her team. "Let's go home." The turning point in orbit, the battle reached its peak. The Zelthar launched their heavy dreadnoughts, massive ships that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Their weapons unleashed torrents of energy, tearing through entire squadrons. The Valiant was hit hard. Sparks rained from the ceiling, alarms screamed, "Rear shields failing," Elias yelled. Reyna stood tall despite the chaos. "Redirect all power to forward batteries. Aim at their dreadnought flagship." "But Admiral, do it." The ship's engines roared as power shifted. The Valiant's main rail cannon glowed white-hot. Reyna gave the final command, "Fire!" The shot ripped through the void, a beam of compressed metal traveling faster than light. It struck the enemy flagship head-on, piercing through armor, reactors, and command decks. The ship exploded in a sunburst of blue fire. The shockwave tore through the enemy lines, sending dozens of ships spinning. The Zelthar formation broke completely. At that exact moment, the communication core on the surface detonated. A massive explosion lit up the planet's surface, and the red lights of the Zelthar fleet flickered and died. Their entire command network went dark. Panic spread through the alien ships. Without central control, they turned on each other, confused and blind. Reyna watched from the bridge as the enemy fleet began to collapse. "They're finished," Elias said, his voice filled with disbelief. Reyna nodded slowly. "Then it's done." The aftermath, when the smoke cleared, the stars around the nebula glowed with debris and silent wrecks. The Rage fleet had taken heavy losses. Hundreds of ships gone. Thousands of lives lost, but they had done the impossible. The Zelthar dominion, once feared across the galaxy, was broken. On every human world. The news spread faster than light. People cheered. Bells rang. The same words echoed again. Carrion is avenged, but Reyna did not celebrate. On the bridge of the Valiant, she stood quietly, looking at the burned remains of the Zelthar fleet. Elias approached. "We won, Admiral. The galaxy will remember this day." Reyna turned to him, her face calm but tired. "Yes, but remember, Rage won us the war. Wisdom must win us the peace. We cannot become what we fought." He nodded slowly, understanding. The camera drones captured that image. The old Admiral standing before the wreckage, the glow of dying stars reflected in her eyes. That image spread across the Terran Union, becoming a symbol of both victory and warning. Years later, children would learn about the Battle of the Veil Nebula in history classes. They would hear how humanity rose again, united not by conquest but by pain, memory, and strength.